All right, we're live. Hello, hello. How's everybody doing tonight? Jason Lede here at Cliff Lede Vineyards for our latest episode of Lede Family Live, Cliff Lede Live. Here we are. Well, it's quite a wet, cloud-covered day here in the valley. We can't complain about that. It's always good for the vines to get lots of moisture this time of year, but you can kind of see in the reflection of the glass. That's what I'm looking out at. Gray skies, although there is a nice little patch of mustard out there. It's like a bright yellow. So it's still pretty, still a very pretty time to come to Napa Valley. And if you're joining us from wherever you're joining us, please use that chat function to let us know what you've had recently, what you're having tonight, or what you're planning on having this weekend. Hopefully you're having something tonight. Open your wine. That's I think my new thing right now. It's like open your bottles, enjoy them. Even if you drink them over in a couple days, it's just good to have a nice glass of wine in the wintertime, right? So we got a great episode tonight with four wines, all new releases, some fun stuff to talk about. I have Keely Ryan, our assistant winemaker, joining us just in a moment. But before we jump into the tasting, I just want to mention a couple things. If you are interested in attending any of our upcoming events, please go to cliffladyvineyards.com, hit the calendar link, the calendar button, and it will show you all the fun things we have coming up. We've got a winemaker feature weekend in Cabo coming up. We have the Rock Block Party in May. We have all different kinds of things all over the country, from Minneapolis to God, I don't even know. We're out there. We're out there trying to see you. So hopefully you'll engage with that and consider coming here to see us. Okay. That's it for the housekeeping. I want to get to tasting some wine. So let's get this show on the road. I'm just going to make a little adjustment here so we can get Keely in the frame.
Hi, everyone.
Say hello to Keely. You may recall she was on 2 episodes ago. Yes. We were in the lab, tasting wine, hanging out.
Yeah, change of scenery.
Yes, we've like upgraded to the white room. This is the normal location. But that was fun doing that in the lab because that, a lot of important work goes down there, and you spend a lot of time there. And
it's a working lab.
It is a working lab. Keely, why don't you tell us what's happening in the winery right now? What's happening in the vineyard? What's going on? What have you been up to?
Yeah, things have been really good. Coming off the holidays, we kind of have a slower time just beautifying the winery. Everything's pretty tucked away, but as of most recently, as of 2 weeks ago, we brought all of our components of our Sauvignon Blanc together in tanks. So from barrel, we racked everything, taking it off of the hard leaves, dead yeast cells, brought everything up into tank together. It's nice, homogeneous in there. So that'll stay there for a little while until we bottle in beginning of April. And then we recently did that as well for the Chardonnay. So once the Sauvignon Blanc was up to tank, a few weeks later, we brought the Chardonnay blend up to tank as well. So those are tucked away. And then next week, we'll work on the preliminary blends for our 2024 reds. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Everything's starting to taste great, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
We also did our first pass of the 2025s.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
Spectacular.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see how those wines have evolved already from such a short time in barrel. I'm just excited. It's exciting.
We've got the 23s coming out now, the 24s coming together, excellent vintages on the way. So we'll talk about 2 of them tonight, 2024 and 2023. We're going to kick things off with our lovely Chardonnay, which still fairly new for our program, right? This is the second vintage of Chardonnay, I guess, consecutively that we've made, from this recent era. Technically, there was a Chardonnay, 20 years ago when my dad first started the winery. But that was, a totally different vineyard source, different team, a lot of things different. And I think, our winery was always more or less founded on the appreciation for the Bordeaux grape varieties, which thrive here in Napa Valley. So Cabernet Sauvignon and Sauvignon Blanc, some of our most celebrated wines from those grape varieties. But what else does Napa do really great? Chardonnay. Chardonnay is one of the greatest, or Napa Valley Chardonnay is one of the greatest in the world, in my opinion, especially when it's grown down in Carneros, that cooler spot in Napa. So second vintage. I mean, Keely, you were here to work on the 2023, so you saw that. So what was there an evolution in how you approached the 2024 compared to the 23, or what can you tell us about this wine?
Yeah, great question. So I guess to jump right off, 2023 was our first I think for Chris and Travis and I, all of us, first time really working with Chardonnay. So kind of just jumped in head first, seeing how the fruit would come in and how it would evolve in primary and secondary fermentation through bottling, of course, and aging. And kind of the same approach with the 2024s, but we had a little bit more of a stronger grasp on the fruit. I think Jason has mentioned this potentially in the past, but we use, the Napa Valley heritage clones. And so there's 4 different clones that we specifically receive from our Carneros property. And it's just to riff them off, our Wente, Hyde, Robert Young, and Mount Eden clones. And so those all really bring a unique component to the wine.
Those are all famous wineries, right? Like the Hyde Vineyard. So that's, where the clone came from. Wente, obviously a famous California wine growing family. And so I think it's cool how we have this connection to California at that vineyard, using those clones. And as you point out, they each kind of express Chardonnay in a slightly different way.
Right.
So this is 100% Chardonnay, but it is still a blend. It's a blend of different components, different types of Chardonnay.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's probably, to some people, might be surprising to hear that it's not just, and for varietals across the board, that it's not just, Cabernet Sauvignon is the same across the board, or Chardonnay is the same across the board. So it's fun to be able to see how these clones, grow and how they mature in the bottle. But yeah, 2024 itself, though, was, pretty stress-free vintage for us, or, the weather-wise. July was pretty warm, so that resulted in fairly early harvest. So we actually harvested all of our Chardonnay the first week of September in 2024. And then we really saw a nice purity and elegance through the 2024 wines really, early. And that was definitely the case for the Chardonnay as well.
I poured this Chardonnay at a wine dinner last week. And one of the guests pointed out how light and vibrant it is in the glass. Like, I don't know, we probably don't have a great, view of that. Maybe on the label there, you can see a bit of that, but they were expecting this like honeyed, rich, buttery Napa Valley Chardonnay, right? And I think they were so impressed that this wine, like our Sauvignon Blanc, just has like so much poise, acidity, freshness, but then like texture and just like a roundness. I mean, there's certainly a more creamy texture to this wine than the Sauvignon Blanc, but can you speak to that a little bit? Just like stylistically, how would you describe this wine for those who haven't tasted it yet? Yeah,
absolutely. So I guess just to jump back specifically about the vintage itself. So 2024 really gave us some low pH grapes, and that was super helpful. pH and TA, or acidity, are inverse of each other. So the lower the pH, the higher the acid levels are. And so that was really helpful as far as evolving freshness and maintaining that freshness in the wine. But with our Chardonnay, contrary to our Sauvignon Blanc, we let it go through malolactic fermentation. So you might hear that as just secondary fermentation, or MLF. So everything goes through alcoholic fermentation, of course, in order to make it wine. But malolactic fermentation is the process of malic acid converting to lactic acid, and that lactic acid, it's found in milk and things like that. So it does impart a creaminess. We really like it for that creaminess and for an enhanced texture, to make the wine a little bit smoother. And
how do you get the butter out though? Like everybody thinks malolactic fermentation, they think it's going to taste like butter.
Completely. Yeah. We really like to, it's a couple different things. Combination of that, having that lower pH, that fresh acidity. We try to have a great oak portfolio with this wine. So not having the super heavily oaked,
the toasty,
that heavy toasted French oak, where the butter is also part of the oak profile, playing in with the fruit profile. But also we really like to make sure that this wine, or the fruit, speaks for itself. So we try to make sure that when we're choosing, a malolactic bacteria for this wine, in order to encourage it to go through malolactic fermentation, we try to choose them that will not impart diacetyl or that buttery characteristic. So when you
we're going down the rabbit hole.
Sorry.
Diacetyl, pHs. I didn't think we'd get this serious, but Keely's on the program, so it's going to get, we're going to get into the weeds here.
Yeah, but that's, if you do ever have that buttery note, that's, chemically speaking, it's diacetyl. And, we try to mitigate that by choosing a malolactic bacteria that won't produce as much diacetyl. But also, like I said, making sure that this fruit can really speak for itself. You get a lot of minerality right off the bat. I think with that freshness, you get a lot of apricot, some good stone fruit there.
It's just so pure, and it just keeps you wanting to come back for another smell, another sip.
Yeah,
you guys
absolutely.
did a wonderful job with this wine. And it's funny because it's a new white wine for Cliff Lede Vineyards in a sense, right? Second vintage, but stylistically, I feel like it's so perfect and within the realm of the way we express our wines, right? Freshness, acidity. I talk about these things with our red wines, with our Sauvignon Blanc, but then dialing in textures and the creaminess of the wine, the tannin, the structure. I mean, it's just such a perfect like Cliff Lede stylistic expression of Chardonnay. So kudos to you guys. This wine's delicious. I'm not sure what else we can say about that. It would pair well with so many different things.
Oh, for sure.
And, as soon as the sun comes out, this is going to be a great wine for that season. But I even like it now, maybe with some creamier dishes, fish, things like that. It has enough acidity to kind of cut through a lot of fat. So, gosh, a lot of options.
Absolutely.
So Chardonnay, for those of you who haven't tried this, you got to give it a whirl. If you like our Sauvignon Blanc, if you like any of our wines, truly, I think this is a wonderful expression of Chardonnay from a single vineyard. That's the other thing. Like this is, it doesn't say this vintage, next vintage, it's going to say High Fidelity Vineyard, because that is what we have dubbed the vineyard in Carneros, our estate. We've dubbed it the High Fidelity Vineyard, and that actually segues perfectly into our next wine. Question real quick though, before we move on to that, can you comment on the oak aging of this wine, the oak program?
Yeah, absolutely. So this wine ages, so for example, the 2024, it was harvested in 2024 in the fall, and then it ages on not 100% new French oak, but I would probably say, I don't know if I have the percentage in front of me, but 85% new French oak barrels. And we bottled this that following summer. So I would say around, what is that, 8 to 9 months? In barrel. So that's the aging process. And sometimes we might bring it up to tank a little sooner than that, but I would say on generally speaking, 8 to 9 months.
Yeah, I would say like you get a hint of oak more so than you would on our Sauvignon Blanc,
for sure.
which also sees some new barrels. So you see a little bit more of that here, but it just works so perfectly with the varietal. So again, great one to taste and see what you think. Of course, we'd love to hear your feedback if you like this wine. We want to know because we love making it and we love drinking it. But we were talking about the High Fidelity Vineyard, which is our 88-acre estate in Carneros, purchased in 2019, replanted in 2020, and a huge part of our future here at the winery, as many of our wines are utilizing that vineyard from a blending perspective. Our Chardonnay is 100% from that vineyard, so it is a single vineyard wine, which is also awesome. And for the price, it's hard to beat that. But let's talk about the High Fidelity red wine. High Fidelity red wine, which if you've been following us or been a fan of Cliff Lede for a long time, you know that we've made this wine for many years. In fact, I think 2007 was the first vintage. And the goal with this wine was to always express a right bank or, Merlot, Cabernet Franc based blend. And over the years, the Merlot percentage would fluctuate, the Cab Franc would fluctuate. I mean, it was always a wine that kind of just expressed that style. And when we purchased the Carneros vineyard, we pretty quickly realized that the soil types, the rolling hills, it reminded me a lot of Saint-Emilion. It reminded me of the right bank of Bordeaux, the clay, everything. And I was like, interesting. Like, I wonder if this could be like, play into High Fidelity, because it bears a lot of similarities to the right bank of Bordeaux. And so over time, as we started bringing fruit in and tasting the wines, and it just became evident that this is the High Fidelity vineyard, and we can now craft High Fidelity to tell that story. And so in this vintage in 2023, we had the majority of the fruit the majority of the fruit in this wine is from that vineyard. It is accentuated by some of our Stag's Leap District fruit and some fruit from Aber's vineyards, but just wanted to make sure that I gave that vineyard sort of its due, because it's finally making an appearance in this wine. And with, again, those perfect conditions down there for Merlot, this wine has a lot of brightness. And I'll tell you, I had a friend over, winemaker friend, another vintner, 2 weekends ago. And I had a few of these at home, and I thought, which one do you want to try? I had the Rhythm, I had the Crossfade. He's like, I want to try High Fidelity. I was like, all right. I hadn't had it in a while. And we opened that bottle. We, of course, we had some other things open. We opened that High Fidelity, and it was gone.
Oh my god!
Before we knew it, this bottle was gone.
Can't say I'm
surprised. It was that delicious, and I mean, he was loving the aromatics, everything. So I'm gonna let you take it away, but I just want to tell everyone. Obviously, I have a passion for this wine. It's just so pretty. It's so pretty, and tell us from your perspective what you think of High Fidelity.
Oh my gosh, yeah, of course. Well, like Jason said, definitely Bordeaux inspired. So typically we primarily will have this be a Merlot Cab Franc blend. And I think in previous years, and maybe not 2022 or 2021, but in prior vintages, we had less Cabernet Sauvignon in this blend. And as time has gone on, when we hit the blending table, and Jason can attest to this, we don't always know exactly where everything's going to fall. But in this particular vintage, that Cabernet Sauvignon really gave to a lovely texture for this wine and helped enhance that further. And so whatever we can do to enhance this wine, we want to make sure we can do it. So there is 28% Cabernet Sauvignon in this wine, but that Merlot really just adds a beautiful softness. I love when this wine comes together and how the Cabernet Franc and Merlot play together. The Cabernet Franc gives such a nice aromatic lift.
That's, at what is it, 40-ish, 38 Franc,
yes.
like 38% Cabernet Franc. So it's the dominant varietal in the blend, but it's all in the aromatics.
Yeah.
It is just like
absolutely
bouquet of, we got some roses sitting at the end of the table here, but I'm feeling like I'm getting a bit of those florals in the glass as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the palate, you get a lot of red fruit from that Merlot, that softness, and you get a lot of strawberries, nice cherry notes as well. But compacted with that, or combined rather with that Cabernet Sauvignon, this softness, but then has like a nice plush, rich texture that lingers in the finish through that Cabernet Sauvignon. So I feel like they all just play really nicely together, and finding that, that perfect, perfect blend.
Perfect balance.
Yeah, balance. Thank you.
I mean, amongst all the 23s that I've had so far, I've noticed this. They're concentrated and they're structurally, what was the word? Like they have a lot of structure, but it's not like there's tannin and there's acid, but there's not like a roughness to these wines.
Right. They're not
They're
overpowering.
just like super polished. Something like this. I mean, what do you think aging on this wine and this style?
Yeah, you could lay this down for a while. I think the nice thing about our wines in general, but specifically with High Fidelity, I would say, is that it's approachable right off the gate. So you could drink this, right upon purchase, or whenever you receive it, and enjoy it and have it and really enjoy those like young notes to this wine. Specifically, like I think right now you get a lot of that herbal note on the nose, and then again, like that young red fruit. Not that this is an incredibly young wine, but you could definitely lay this down, I think, for 10 plus years and have those notes just continue to evolve. It's alive in the bottle, so it's nice to see how this will just continue to get even more velvety, more plush. And like Jason said, the texture and the structure is definitely complex in there and soft, but that'll continue to soften over time, which is exciting.
Really good. I would do this with like duck or like lamb, like something that just has a little bit, not gamey, but like a little bit something more, like maybe a dry aged like New York strip or something, like just something that has a little bit of that, I don't want to say funkiness, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's like just a little bit of that.
Yeah, I was going to say tang, but I'm like, I don't know if I should say that.
I feel like the floral note, like just the way the Franc would pair with that would be really pretty. And like I say, this bottle's irresistible right now. I think I said at the top of the episode, like drink the wine, like just enjoy it. That's what probably the number one question I get is, when should I drink this? And people kind of get wrapped up in wanting to lay things down for the perfect moment at the perfect time. And I always say, buy a few bottles so that way you can try them over the years. But gosh, these 23s are just pull the cork, and they are fantastic. Of course, young and expressing some youth, so you got to be into that. I love when wines have that youthful power, but wow, this is just really, really good. So quick question here from Carol, High Fidelity new style label. Yes. So with Rhythm, when we launched Rhythm, we came out with the 2-piece black label, as an expression of, I guess, a new series of how to signify our single vineyard or our proprietary blend wines. And we felt with High Fidelity, with Crossfade, we really felt that became more of a series of wines between Rhythm, Crossfade, High Fidelity, potentially something in the future. And we wanted those wines to really live as a family together. So some of the classic references that we had on those labels are more tied into the back label copy, what is written on the back label. This one references, it's highly faithful to its right bank inspiration. So I think the previous label had like a definition on the back. So we tied in some of that, but we did move away from having the like the spindle or the Crossfade had the little crossfader on it to really give these like a package that kind of put them on the level of what they deserve, which is an expression of a single vineyard or a proprietary blend that really is elevated above the Napa Valley tier of wines we make. So like our Napa Valley Cabernet. So great question. I hope you're liking the new labels. I absolutely love them. And I think, the way that the gold pops on there is very on brand for us. And like I said, some exciting things to come to down the road. But we got to keep moving on because, we got 2 more wines to get through. And these will be fun to taste because these ones I haven't tasted in a while. I did not open a bottle of either of these the other night, thankfully, after we went through that bottle of High Fidelity. We're going to go to the Oakville first. So this is the 2023 Oakville Cab. And so we're still talking about single vineyards here because this vineyard is a specific site that we sourced some fruit from. So this is not an estate vineyard. This is a vineyard that is actually just up the road from us. And this whole series is about finding these special little pockets throughout Napa Valley, and then making an exceptional wine, and then offering it to our wine club as an extreme value, because these are things that great appellations like Oakville. You think of, you think of Opus One, you think of Screaming Eagle, you think of Dalla Valle. this vineyard is just south of Screaming Eagle on the east side, right? Well, tell us more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Jason's mentioned this before, but it's so fun to see. When I first visited this vineyard site in Oakville, when I first started working with Cliff Lede Vineyards, I was so pleasantly surprised just because it's just tucked away. It's right behind the Office of Fish and Game, which is why we call it the Game Farm Vineyard in Oakville. But it's just a little treasure back there. It's incredibly rocky, gravelly soil. And just a kind of anecdote on that is that the Rector Creek across the way, the reservoir, when they built that, they scraped off all of the topsoil of this Oakville vineyard right across the way, right across Silverado Trail, and left it with just this intense, rocky, gravelly soil, which you definitely can get on the nose and on the palate of this wine. Definitely, peeks through there. But it's just a really unique vineyard site. And I guess just to touch on the 2023 vintage, that still definitely applies to the High Fidelity that we just tasted. Super mild conditions in 2023, long hang times, which just gave us really great fruit development, and further fruit development equals, further flavor profiles, more elegance. And we were able to see that right off the bat, especially, with this Oakville wine. It's definitely true. And you get a lot of that dark fruit, right off the bat.
Very different from High Fidelity fruit profile wise. This is clearly Cabernet, a little bit more density, darker fruit component for sure. Still that really lovely textural element I keep referencing when it comes to the 23s. They're like, this is, it would be very easy for these wines to be massively tannic and hard to drink. And you'd be thinking like, oh my God, I got to put this in the cellar for 20 years for it to soften. But sometimes, those wines that are super tannic, like they never truly come into like full form. I've drank many of these old Bordeaux's with my dad, and sometimes we're just like, damn, is this ever going to soften up? And so that, it has to be a tricky thing as a winemaker to try to figure out like how far do you push the extended maceration, and how much like the extraction do you really want to kind of get the color and the structure and the tannins. But I just feel with this vintage, really coming off 21 and then into 22 and now into 23, like you guys have kind of found this nice spot where the wines have approachability because they're not like so aggressively, tannic in the mouth.
Right.
Not that they ever really were, but there's certainly examples of vintages. I think of maybe 2015 was like a pretty tannic vintage. 23 is not showing that. There's this wonderful development here. Definitely get that soil. There's a lot of soil.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You definitely get that intensity of flavor for sure. I mean, I don't know. With Oakville, I always kind of get that note of kind of crushed violet. There's a little bit of that floral, but it's not overpowering note. And like you said, with the intensity, it's a nice coupling because you have the intensity of flavor and of fruit, but the tannin is not overpowering. It's there, and it provides a great complex structure to this wine. It feels serious even as a young wine, which is really lovely. And Chris has really been able to, all of us together, but he leads us in finding the best, extended maceration program and finding the sweet spot to take these wines off of their skins, like you were saying. And then also combating, a heavily tanned wine is finding the right, combination of barrels, used versus new, and different cooperages provide, different qualities to their toasts and their barrels. So finding what specific, what this wine can handle as far as oak before it was bottled, really definitely helps with, that tannin structure for sure.
Yeah, and it just keeps, every time I keep going in, it's something different.
Yeah.
Something new. It's opening up in the glass here. It's obviously, I open these wines at 4 o'clock or maybe 1:45 Pacific time. So they've had at this point close to 45 minutes. Gosh, that's a great wine. It's a great vineyard, and what a fun thing to work with. We've only made like 400 some, just under 500 cases of this wine. So small production, again, only something that we, let out to the club and in the tasting room. So if you like this wine, let us know. We can get you some more. But what a treat to have that. And, now we're setting up for a platinum wine. So I'm excited for that. So, gosh, what do we got next? Songbook. So part of our trio of what we call our platinum wines with Tokalan and poetry, of course. Songbook is probably the most under the radar of the three because, Tokalan being one of the most, famous vineyards in all of Napa, and then poetry being our estate vineyard and the thing that we truly champion the most. And then Songbook, which has always been an expression of, or I guess a tribute to the relationship that my dad had with, or has with his friend David Abreu, who's one of the most famous and well-known viticulturalists, winemakers out here in the Valley. And his vineyards are the primary source for this wine and always have been. The back of this wine used to say, it's a result of a handshake. It was kind of my dad and David working together. David was our vineyard manager for the first 10 years that we were making wine out here. And so we still have a very close connection to him. We still buy fruit from him. And as time has gone on, we're the only other winery. I think there's 2 wineries that buy fruit from him now. The others have moved on. And so to have access to these world-class vineyards like this and be able to make a wine like this is really special. And I have to say, from my perspective, only having sat around the blending table for the last, 2 years now, I think, to taste through everything and see, I can see now, how impressive Madrona Ranch is, the Franc, the Cabernet Sauvignon, how unique the Lucia vineyard is. And then in the future, working with Thorvilos and some of other David sites, that's what makes this wine special. And I know it's not as easy to understand as, say, poetry, which when you're here, you look right at it, or Tokalan, and just knowing that Tokalan is famous. This is serious stuff from one of the most well-regarded vineyard managers. And this is his private stash of vineyards that he doesn't just open up to anybody. So it's a long way to introduce the wine, but Songbook, right? A collection, a compilation of things. This is multiple vineyards coming together to create something that's truly fantastic. 2023 vintage. Keely, tell us what you think.
I mean, just to echo you, as far as these specific vineyard sites, I mean, David and his teams are incredibly meticulous with their vineyard management. And so even if you were to drive by these vineyards or experience them, you would immediately be able to recognize all of the hard work that goes into manicuring these vineyards and making the fruit what it is. And so our job as the winemaking team, and this is the case for our own vineyard team, and for, of course, like Abreu's vineyard team, is to just uphold the integrity of the fruit come harvest, when it gets, the baton's passed over to us. And so it's always really fun working with Songbook and blending it, because even though, yes, we know exactly, like, generally speaking, where the fruit is going to be coming from with the Madrona Ranch vineyard and Lucia up on Howell Mountain, it's still so fun to see how the fruit evolves over time, and like percentages change, of course. And so it's just a really fun wine to see how it is expressed over time. Specifically with Howell Mountain, and the Lucia vineyard, you have that little bit of like that forest pine note that peeks into the Madrona Ranch profile really, really nicely, in my opinion. And I feel like that's kind of like a nice stamp of Songbook, is having that little bit of pine, but also like the really amazing elegance of the fruit that comes from
I always get like super ripe, like raspberries. Like there's a bit of a redder fruit in this wine, and that's how I would explain this versus, say, Poetry or Tokelon. Tokelon is like very pure. It's 100% Cabernet. You get a lot of the loamy, rocky qualities of Tokelon. Poetry always has like that dark chocolate, cocoa powder, cassis, like black, dark mountain fruit, like just really intense, place to grow grapes, and resulting in a very intense wine. But like Songbook to me has always been a little bit more about that red fruit note, and a little bit more, I don't know how to put it. It is definitely differentiated from the other two in a way. And again, I have to point out that this wine, like in the entry, it's just so plush and delicious. And then you feel the tannins kind of it's like a crescendo. Like just the tannins just come up, and then they're there in the finish, indicating that this wine has like all the components you want for something that's going to age a very long time. But
absolutely,
God damn it, it's hard to resist right now.
Yeah,
this is great. I haven't had this since
probably
when we were doing critic tastings in like November, or earlier, or toward the end of last year.
So it's been a few months for myself as well. I always feel like with Songbook and that Madrona Ranch Cabernet Sauvignon, there's always a slight savory note that comes through, especially on the nose, and that definitely is complemented by this specific vintage has 7% Cabernet Franc from Madrona Ranch. But that savory note, I really love that, because it does make the Songbook stand alone. It has a little bit of that like clove, cardamom, baking spice, but also a little bit of like peppery note. And so it's unique, and
there is that pepper. I was going to say, like there are some sweet spices in here, but it does have a little like,
it's like black pepper.
Yeah, peppercorns. It's just so interesting, because you even point out like the pine forest note from Howell. That is something that when you taste that lot individually, it's very evident. And then when you use it in the blend like this, you can still pick up on that. And that's the whole point of what we do here. Like when we're blending and we're piecing these wines together, there is something to be said about tasting the Tokelon, for example, which is 100% cab from that vineyard. Mind you, it is 3 different blocks, so we do, get to blend a few things. But more or less, or more so for our winery, it's about the art of blending and bringing different components and different nuances into a wine. So if a little bit of Cabernet from Poetry is going to accentuate a note on this wine, like, we don't have like necessarily a dogmatic approach about it, but this is a super complex wine. I love it. I know Antonio Galloni loved it. I think he gave it 97 points. So there's always nice to have a nice score from a guy like that. But wow, what an amazing vintage through and through. All those 23s we tasted. It's really, really actually kind of fun to finally get around to tasting these, because I remember living through that harvest. And it was just every day was 80, 85, maybe 90, and then every night it was 55, maybe 50. Like it was just perfect every day, day after day after day. So what a pleasure to finally get into these.
For sure.
And you guys did such an amazing job that year, every year. What you guys are doing here, I think you're making some of the best wines we've ever made at the winery, and Mother Nature's giving us some really lovely weather. I'm going to touch wood, because this season's just starting, but lots of rain coming in, so this season's off to a good start. And then age of the vines. Like it's just things are really coming together, and wow, these wines are really getting to impress me every time I do these episodes. Gosh, it's been probably 6 years of doing webinars, which is mind blowing.
Since COVID,
I don't even know how
crazy.
many episodes this is, but this was a good one. You know, we always try to talk food pairings, and I always get crap from the marketing team because I would say, yeah, have a ribeye with it, but it's like that's what you want with this. That is probably the thing that is going to work the best. So I tried to work in a little, you know, dry age this.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you caught that, but yeah, that's from the marketing team. They're saying, Chris, Jay, stop talking about ribeyes all the time. So anyway, a lot of versatility. You can do a lot of great dishes with these wines. Man, I'd even have pasta with these. Like, whatever.
Oh, for sure.
Don't overthink it. Just enjoy them. Drink your wine. That is what I'm saying. That's like my 2026 mantra. Like, just open it up, drink it, enjoy it, finish it the next day or the day after. It's not going to go bad.
No,
it's not going to go bad. Don't worry about that. So I guess that's it. If there's any other questions, throw them in there. I'll ask you a question. What Olympic sport are you looking forward to the most? Are you still waiting on one, or is your favorite, or is it over now?
You know, I'll be honest, I haven't tuned in too much. I kind of just see the highlights like on my social media algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of highlights of curling, honestly.
It's like Canada's national sport.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And just like seeing how, you know, their personal lives and how that kind of plays with their sport and their lifestyle with curling. And so I thought that was interesting, but also just seeing a lot of the downhill ski racing is super interesting to me, like moguls, and then Lindsey Vonn. Now she's been injured and everything, but up until that, I really haven't paid much attention. So I don't really know how the standings are right now, but I always really enjoy watching the Olympics, at least the highlights.
Good. Well, my answer is easy. It's hockey. The hockey, you know, if we get a USA-Canada rematch, it's going to be something special. So
okay, we'll have to blast that on the big screen.
We might have to host a watch party here at the winery, although it might be at like 7 a.m. So it is what it is. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming on the show, the episode. Reach out to us if you have questions about your wine club shipment or any of the wines. If you need anything else, let us know. Take a look at the calendar. If you want to come join us at any of the events we're doing. I forgot to mention the cruise, of course. The cruise is coming up in July. Still have spots available for that with the extension to Mass Deutsch, our partner winery in the Priorat. Going to be an awesome trip. We'll be back with another webinar in, I think, April. So we probably won't see you on the program until then, but stay in touch and be well, and come see us when you can. All right. And thank you, Keely, for telling us all the great stuff. I think you educated a lot of people, like for sure.
Maybe if you guys took away even one little thing, that's fine with me.
Exactly. All right. Take it easy, everyone.
Beautiful.